Come see the media frenzy over a possibly fake rally hyped by an AI face bot. Or as Bill Whittle put it backstage, welcome to the 21st century. Hey everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, this is just such a crazy story. I had to lead Insanity Rap with it on Tuesday of this week over at BJ Media. So there was a rally on Saturday in Washington, D.C. by members of a group called Patriot Front, I think it is. Double checking. Yes, Patriot Front. I went to their website. I read their manifesto. Oh, man, it's just 1930s fascism dressed up with some pro-America language. It's really bad stuff. When they talk about collective liberty, I'm just like, oh, that's collective not even liberty. A thing.
We're big on that.
Yeah, collective liberty. That's like Joe Biden awareness. Just it's not a thing. Anyway, so about 100 of these protesters marched in Washington on Saturday. They didn't have a permit. And it looks so much like the feds who showed up at that September rally that even Donald Trump warned was a trap, because they're all guys who look to be fit, late 20s, early 30s. They're all wearing khakis, blue windbreakers. They're carrying shields for some reason. And what gets me is
they've all got the same sunglasses, Steve. There's the giveaway right there.
Yes, and the white
They've all got the same dark sunglasses. It's absurd.
Yeah, it so much looks like a setup. Even the website. I've seen some of these neo-Nazi things, and this thing looks way too professionally done. So the whole thing just stinks to high heaven for starters. The thing that got me, Bill, is they had a couple of drummers, and yet they still couldn't actually march. So I don't think there was an actual military veteran in the entire group. So when you see something like this, and I'll get to the hype part in just a minute, Bill, when you see something like this, I know your nose starts to twitch. Your that's wrong dar starts to ping. And yet things like this always get reported as straight news, don't they?
Yeah, it's funny how that happens, isn't it? I'm looking at one of these pictures, Steve. I guess since I get to do the thumbnails, it'll be the picture on the thumbnail for this episode. And it breaks my heart to say this. It really does. But I'm looking at this picture, and the first thing that came into my mind is FBI. That's what it looks like to me.
Same.
They all look exactly like what you would expect FBI agents to look like. One thing I can assure you of is that is not a genuine group of American citizens who got together for whatever purpose, nefarious or otherwise. That is not a random sampling of a political group in America. That is a group of people who have been sampled beforehand. These, as you say, these are all young, white, fit males wearing the same exact masks, the same exact hats. They're wearing khaki shorts, and and you could say, well, they're handing out that uniform, but they're all wearing the exact same kind of aviator sunglasses that the feds always wear when they want to stand in the corner and look cool and talking to their lapels, and so. The fact that this is undoubtedly yet another attempt to paint Republicans, conservatives, and especially Trump supporters as a bunch of Nazis, because, as you know, the amount of real injustice in this country is fallen way short of demand, and we are making a synthetic injustice just as fast as we possibly can. And that's exactly what this is. This is what our government has become now. It's become an organization to plant evidence against half of the country so that the other half of the country can believe the lies about that half of the country that didn't exist in the first place, that justifies their hatred of them, that therefore justifies their oppression of them. So there aren't any conservative Nazis, because Nazism is a collectivist idea. It's the National Socialist German Workers' Party. You can't be a conservative and a Nazi at the same time. But they are waving the flag around a lot, and we wave the flag around a lot too. So if you can somehow get the flag waving connected to Nazis, and then you've scored a real win from the public perception of people who wave flags. I saw this picture and I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm going to go with laugh, and the reason I'm going to go with laugh is because 2 years ago I would have been crying. Now it just looks absurd to me. I don't think anybody believes this. I don't think anybody buys it. And the especially funny part is that somehow they think they can get away with this in the age of the internet. It's just simply not going to happen. But as you say, the news is selective. So when it becomes known that this whole thing was in fact a farce and a false flag kind of thing. Will that become news? Of course not. No, just disappear like the morning dew.
Bye-bye. Scott, then things got weird. If you'll let me quote Les Nessman, the famous Thanksgiving episode. I don't
Steve,
even know
I'm
where
sorry.
to begin with
I'm
this.
sorry. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I know I always butt in, but I just looking at this picture, and I just finally got this. When you've got a bunch of young men who are trying to have if let's say this was real, okay? When you've got a bunch of young men who are trying to impress themselves and others with how tough you are, you dress them like you dress Antifa. You put them in combat pants, you put them in combat boots, you put them in dark colors. You don't dress them like they're all 150-year-old veterans of a Rotary Club. You don't dress yourself like Rotary Club members if you're trying to intimidate people. And I'm looking at these pictures of these guys in their powder blue shirts and their khaki pants, and I just don't believe it. I just don't.
Yes, it's a revolt of the middle managers. Ooh.
Pharmacist fronts.
So, Scott, this whole thing got publicity pretty much for one reason, because there weren't enough people there to actually generate a real scene, 100 or so. A Twitter account was created just a couple of days before the Saturday rally, claiming to be a person by the name of Cheryl Llewellyn. And people on Twitter disassembled this account. It was a glorious thing to see. Cheryl's pretty face is apparently an AI blend of a couple or three different photos. You can easily find, headshots on a Google image search. There's no evidence of Cheryl Llewellyn having existed anywhere on Google prior to Wednesday or Thursday of last week. She'd only tweeted a few things before Saturday when she sent out this ominous tweet about 500 white nationalists are storming the Capitol, and she tagged a bunch of reliably progressive journalists on this tweet, who then ran with it, and this tweet from an imaginary person on a brand new account went viral. And as somebody who's used a lot of social media, that never happens, ever. So her warning about the neo-Nazis, once it went viral, the account turned around 180 degrees, and it became a Patriot Front account. Then that was pushing Patriot Front propaganda. The banner was changed, and just a complete 180. So this makes me willing to entertain the notion that this Patriot Front might even be a legitimate group. I'm entertaining the notion. But what astounds me is how somebody, whether legit or false flag, is able to do what they just did. Is anything real anymore?
Yeah, it's funny because Bill, in a slightly different context, said that you can't do this in the age of the internet, and I immediately thought you can only do this in the age of the internet. No, this is, and he was talking about something else.
You can't get away with it.
But it's. I think that there are many, many people out there who, for a variety of motives, are looking for ways to come up with scams so that they can become briefly notorious or famous, depending on how you look at it. I disagree with Bill. I don't think the FBI would do anything like this. I don't care whose political administration is in charge. I don't care what you think about what former FBI Director James Comey did. The FBI is not sending 100 people out to the street in identical clothing to see if they can make everybody think that a bunch of Trump supporters have gone insane. I do look at that group and, relatively young people, and I think finally somebody has figured out how to get young people out of doors and away from their computers. So I think we finally got them doing something healthy. They're out there attempting to march, apparently with no previous experience at marching. I really don't think anybody outside of the cloister of whoever created this thing knows truly what happened. I think we run into risky territory, though, on both sides of the political aisle when we immediately attribute to whatever is happening or whatever new phenomenon pops up to the narrative of what we already believe about somebody we think is doing something wrong. Right now, if I had to lay a bet on this based on the sparse information that I have, I'd say that this was somebody either there is a group that wants to style themselves as the Patriot Front and decided that the way to get a little publicity was to do it this way. Or somebody with a Twitter account who knew what this Patriot Front group was doing decided to have a little fun with it and found a way. And this is really, I think, the kind of interesting part about this story, found a way to bypass Twitter's system of weeding out such things by essentially changing the face of their account at the last second right before they needed it.
Yeah, the account, by the way, has been suspended, but Twitter won't say exactly why. They just give the usual violation of our
community standards,
or whatever the thing is. I would really like to know what that account did or said to get banned after generating this viral tweet. That said, this reminds me of Twitter back in the good old days. And I don't want to sound like old man Grumpus on my porch yelling at clouds. But what people forget, as awful as Twitter has become, dominated by the cruelest progressives and the stupidest bots you could possibly imagine, it was really the right, it was conservatives who discovered Twitter first and generated a lot of interest in that platform. The first Tea Party rallies were by and large organized on Twitter, often in DMs, sometimes publicly, and it was a great platform for the right. And then, of course, the wokes came in, the progressives came in, the professionals came in. It just ruined what I used to call my 24/7 cocktail party that I could drop in on any time and have a nice conversation with people that I knew or didn't know. It was lovely. But since then, we've seen a bunch of Twitter alternatives spring up as Twitter has gone downhill. Parler is the one that comes to mind. And I've tried all of them out. And most of them consist of a lot of righties promoting their latest column and none of the fun, none of the conversation, none of the things that drew me to Twitter in the first place back in 2008, 2009. So it makes me wonder with a little regret. I know what happened with Twitter. Wonder what happened to us. There's your right angle on that, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.